Hey everybody, Tech for Road channel here, and we're giving a second chance to the Eken V8S. I'm saying second chance because the first review was the most disliked I've ever done. And like usual, after the initial impressions, there is a follow-up deep dive, which is happening right now. Starting with this one, I'm going to switch to a more systematic approach, and now you're going to be aware of every little test I'm going to be performing with this camera. So besides the regular footage in different scenes, not that there are too many with the menus of this camera, but still, I'm also going to explore how this camera performs attached to a gimbal. We'll see the firmware, compatible SD cards. We'll figure out how Eken's support would respond to your queries, and a lot of other exciting great features. So if you're curious or not, well, we're starting anyways. Let's go! The build quality is the first component we are reviewing, and that's one of the few things I can easily say I do like about this camera. It's premium plastic, and overall it feels good, it feels stable and solid, and I believe you wouldn't have any issues with buttons or anything on that. Microphone, however, is less than being good. I'm using compression throughout the whole video, so you probably are hearing me fine, but keep in mind, if you want to produce good videos with proper voice levels, you're always going to stick to some kind of software improvements. Concerning shooting performance, we have plenty of limitations. First of all, there's no resolution offering 120 frames per second, and at least in my firmware, I couldn't find an option for slow motion, which leaves you to be shooting at 1080p 60 frames per second and slowing down 2.5 times, because that would be the closest to the maximum that a human eye would not feel as a shutter effect. Unlike other cameras with the same hardware characteristics, you won't find any features for wide, narrow or medium field of view. Among the few available features, you will find an option to make a time-lapse video. When I was reviewing the camera initially, I thought the MICROSD card compatibility here is brought to a different level. Unfortunately, it turns out to be just a cosmetic change which does not have any positive impact. Exactly the opposite. I find it very difficult to get a MICROSD card working at 4K. Attaching to a gimbal, that's an exercise we're conducting. It works, of course, just like every action camera, but you can't shut off the electronic image stabilization, which will always leave you with some artifacts when the camera is moving. So let's check it out. Start to move and then run. According to Eken, this camera cannot be used as a dash cam because it cannot record while being charged, which is quite a disappointment, and overall the battery performance is more of a disappointing. You get about 60 to 70 minutes of recording at full HD, and 4K goes down to 50 plus, maybe 54 is the maximum I got, which compared to some of the other action cameras which have a bit larger batteries, yeah, it's just not enough. So if you're going to buy this camera, make sure to get some extra batteries.
Okay, so now the camera is recording, and just like I'm going to do from now on, a range test of the Wi-Fi connectivity. So let me start moving backwards.
I just want to say that there are no disturbances here. This is an area without any Wi-Fi connections. It's still stable. I'm already kind of 5 meters away. Starts to drop. Whoops. Need to be careful following the path. Okay. Yeah, I'm still visible.
Alright. Hello, hello. Wow. It's still fine. And now, not fine anymore. Alright, well, I think it's returning now. Okay, that's more or less the limit. You can see that the screen already returns.
Okay, now we know nothing surprising about 10-meter range distance where the camera could be controlled, and I would say 6 to 7 where you would feel comfortable controlling the camera. One of my greatest disappointments was in regards to the firmware. It looks like this camera has 3 hardware revisions, and according to Eken, the latest one is the best. Unfortunately, that was the only version I couldn't find a firmware for. And it turns out that just a few months after it has been released, it has been entirely abandoned by the Eken's firmware team. As a comparison, just for the first 2 months of existence of the Firefly 8S, we had at least 6 firmware updates. As for support, things might be even worse. My numerous attempts to get in touch with Eken's support resulted into no response from their side. And I can promise you I've been pushing them a lot. Tried a few times over YouTube, tried a few times over Facebook, and sent twice one and the same email to both their marketing and support teams. This was everything I have prepared for you in regard to the Eken V8S and its 3rd hardware revision. It's still kind of tough for me to make a verdict. Yeah, so let's summarize. Picture quality, not great, not even close to be very good, so I would say moderate to good. When you're shooting in 4K, if you ever find a suitable card, a really great aspect is the image stabilization, and I like that. The picture has some noise, the color representation could be better. I don't like the focus, unfortunately the picture is not too detailed. The microphone, pretty bad. During the whole video I've been using a voice editor and I've been using compression, so if I shut it off you can hear that the frequency range and the level of the sound is pretty bad. Battery life, unfortunately bad. Yeah, we can count on up to 60 minutes of filming, and just for an example, the Xiaomi Mijia Action Camera offers 2 hours in 4K and 3 hours in Full HD through a single battery charge. The Firefly 8S can hold up to 90 minutes and maybe even more sometimes. Well, the advantage here is that the batteries are relatively cheap. In terms of features, no car mode, no 120 frames per second for recording in Full HD. You only count on 4K, 2.5K and 60 frames per second on Full HD. Of course you have 30 frames per second for Full HD and the 720p. And you have some slow motion, which is horrible, yeah? So the best thing you can do to get a 60 frames per second on Full HD and just slow it down as much as possible, that would be like 2.5 times, and I guess that would be satisfactory quality. Probably one of the other good aspects of this camera is the build quality. I have no remarks about that. The buttons are good, navigation, you get used to that. There is a nice display on the front, and the accessories. Probably the best set of accessories I've ever got on an action camera. So maybe if you're looking for good accessories, that's one of the best choices right now. Trading at about $120. I really hope the price is going to go down, and if you're looking for some discount, check the description below. That's all I wanted to share about this Eken V8S camera. Apparently the verdict is that the camera is not great. If you want to prove me wrong and you want to show me your best samples, then join me in the comment section below and I'll make sure to include your videos as part of the description. That has been another deep dive of an action camera. For more requests, ideas, comments, etc., I'm expecting you in the comments below or over an email. It's been a pleasure to be around, and I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers!